Okay, let's start off with the world record in the VB.10. This plane is an absolutely crazy fragmobile that rewards knowledgeable and aggressive players with sky-high kills per game and over 80% solo win rate, even without the plane possessing competitive performance. I'll be showing you some of the tricks I used to get these stats after the battle, so keep watching to the end. This match is on Hurtgen, in a full up tier with the Allies on my team and Germany on the other. From checking my team list early game, I know my team is not equipped with many good fighters, while the enemy team is likely to be stacked with BF-109s, 190Ds, and Do-335s that will disrupt my team's climb early game. This match is likely to be a difficult one to win, and my teammates are already dropping like flies. There is a massive furball on the deck, along with 4 enemies at altitude who have been chasing a bomber. Even though I know my team will lose that furball in 90% of cases because they are outnumbered in planes with worse turn rate, I cannot go help them because the people at altitude will get free position on me and kill me. Despite being fast at high altitude, the VB-10 cannot outrun the Do-335 and 190D down low, so I absolutely cannot afford to allow any of these planes to gain the altitude advantage if I want to win. I also see that 3 of them are squatted, which makes my situation worse because if they are properly coordinating, victory becomes almost impossible. Thankfully, I do have a single allied P-38 at altitude which prevents the enemy from focusing only me, at least for the moment. I have to take risks here. I decide that I will go head on with the Do-335 that is in front of me. This is because he is the only one that is paying attention to me. So I will spray a few shots in the long range head on. He doesn't dodge, so I very quickly pull back in and get the severe damage on him, which is very lucky. Don't think I take such close head-ons every match. It's very risky, and one unlucky shot could have ended my game. Unfortunately for me, my team was crumbling, and time was not a luxury that I had. The reason that I went after that particular Do, again, is because I saw that he was the only one who was paying attention to me, and therefore he was the only immediate threat at that moment. I then dive after the BF-109, who is chasing my teammate. He makes the cardinal mistake of fixating on a target and not paying attention to his surroundings. Pro tip, it's easy to spot free kills like that by watching to see if the enemy is chasing your teammates and doesn't react when you are closing in on him. I have 2 teammates beneath me and 4 enemies, a situation that my teammates will likely not survive, even with my assistance. Therefore, I will not throw my plane away to save teammates that are flying dead. So I circle back over and I am picking out my target. This BF-109 here is in the back of the train and he is focusing on the P-38 in front of him and making the exact same mistake. So I'm a much bigger threat to him because of my much better guns, so I kill him, and then I want to preserve my energy, so I go on straight, and then I take the head on with this Do-335, who is the most opportune target. I expected him to pull back into me because people get very greedy in these situations, which is why I was prepared to pull out the head on immediately. I got some black smoke on him, and his engine noise was a little quieter than I expected it to be, so it's possible that I took out at least one of his engines. I have a big energy advantage over these guys, so I will maintain the attack by converting my speed back into altitude and turning over the enemy, forcing them to pitch straight up and stall out if they want to get a shot. However, the issue is the enemy fighters in the back line. If I die for any of the enemies below me, I will lose my energy advantage over the guys 6 kilometers away, and they will kill me for sure. This is the point where most people would get greedy for frags and throw away their plane by diving into the furball to maybe get an ace before they lose, but I am trying to win, so I continue my shallow climb to make sure I am in position to deal with the 6 guys beneath me. If the enemy now coordinates by sending climbers in all different directions to box me in, without allowing me to kill them one by one, I will be in a very bad situation. But they don't. See what I mean here? If I dived after the Do-335 to finish the kill, these guys would have been all over me and I would have had no chance of escape. But since I maintained my speed and they did not reclimb properly, they then stall up into me and give me the freest shots in the world. They were never going to catch me, so all I had to do was wait for them to run out of speed and then pitch down. The 109 sacrifices himself, while then the 190 fails to exploit his roll rate advantage at higher speeds and essentially flies in a straight line. There was zero need for me to pitch down and go onto the head-on with them with the massive advantages that I had. So I continued to pursue the 190, who was not reacting to me, perhaps because he expected his teammates to take care of me in the 2-on-1. By the time he notices that I am behind him, it was already too late, and I collected 6 kills in just 3.5 minutes. I now make a crucial choice. The BF-109 is at a higher altitude than the enemy 190D, but he is chasing AI, while only 4 kilometers away from me, which means he has no situational awareness or target priority. Such a player is less likely to be dangerous than the enemy 190D in front of me, who turns back into me. So this choice pays off because he comes head-on with me when he sees that I'm not going to leave his squad mate alone. I needed him to die here, so I sprayed a lot of rounds in the head-on, and what I did is I aimed slightly above and to the right of his plane, which means that my right pair of guns will connect with his aircraft. Because the guns on the VB-10 are spaced farther apart than they really have any right to be, your gun convergence will screw with you in longer range shots, so you need to be aware with this and offset your cursor slightly. The Do-335 then crashes himself, and that saves me ammunition. So The head-on worked just as planned by spraying off a bunch of rounds, and I continue on towards the VB.10 F4. The 109 is still chasing AI even as I am closing in on his 6. He had no idea it was there, and did not come to the rescue of his friendly 190D and 035. This is why I prioritized killing these two over him, even though he was in the more threatening position. Now I am free to close the range on his 6 while he wastes his energy with useless defensive maneuvers, and then decides to go after even more ground targets. So it is here that my hands will start shaking due to the potential to carry, and I close in farther to make sure that I will get an easy shot, as I don't want to waste any ammunition, and I blow easy shots at point 4. So he starts going defensive, and I start wasting ammo on him. I get a spark, I waste even more ammo, and due to the guns being spaced far apart, a lot of the bullets would have missed him anyway. So when I got too close, I pitched up in a maneuver known as a high yo-yo, which took me into the vertical to reset my position. He could have made it dangerous by pitching up after me, but instead he chose to turn in the horizontal, which opened the distance and allowed me to set him on fire with a few well-placed rounds. We have gone from an unwinnable scenario to a completely winnable 1 versus 2 extremely fast, but it was only possible due to the enemy's complete lack of target priority, situational awareness, and energy management, as well as my aggressive playstyle. Had I waited too long to engage, there was a risk that they could have started using teamwork to run me down and prevent me from effectively using my energy advantage by exploiting their numbers. So now I will run down the 190D. The 410 is further away from me and not a threat to me late game even if he lands in repairs. However, the 190 definitely is, so I need to make sure that he crashes. He seems to have watched my video on landing and repairing without a wing, so it's possible that he can make it back to the airbase. I take a few shots at him and miss, again mostly due to nerves, and then perform the high yo-yo maneuver over him again. This resets my position, and I really didn't want to fly back in front of him directly into his guns and die in the most embarrassing way possible, so due to the effort of having to dodge me, he will now fly himself directly into a tree, and we might have to censor that due to the maneuvers that he was making. So I am now free to chase the ME410 for the potential 10th kill, and only my 5th 10 kill game ever. I also have the recording of my 10 kill game in the P61, so if you guys want to see that before my other projects, you should definitely tell me in the comments. Situations like these are extremely rare, for the simple reason that your teammates will usually get enough kills that an 8+ kill game is mathematically impossible. You need for your team to be extremely potato and recognize that situation early enough to convert it into double-digit frags. Fortunately, it is possible to get 6 to 7 kill matches in this plane even without needing to be in a special situation, and I will show you tips for getting high kills per battle after this match ends. For now, I am worried about the 410's back gunner, as the 13mm are absolutely capable of one-shotting wings and setting me on fire if he has good enough aim. The 410 has great gunner fire arcs, he can aim beneath him, unlike most tail gunners, and the lower tiered ones have decently competitive performance, so making a video on that plane is definitely on my bucket list. So I accidentally tap fire my guns. I got a new mouse fairly recently, and one of the things about it is that the left mouse click is a lot more sensitive than the mouse click of the previous one, so I accidentally tap fire a lot. So I close underneath him, picking up speed, and then getting within my gun convergence, and then I start popping off shots. Now my first few shots will miss, and I'm low on ammo, and I'm absolutely about to have a heart attack, but thankfully the guns come in clutch at the last moment with 8 rounds left, and I secured the 10th kill and one of the craziest carries of my career. Alright, I promised to show you my techniques after the carry ends, so it's time to look at what I'm thinking about to increase my impact and get more kills in normal situations. Okay, maybe that's a bit too fast. At the start of every match, I climb towards the enemy at about 15 degrees and turn on manual engine controls. You don't have much to worry about other than setting 100% prop pitch and 50 to 60% radiators to keep the engine from overheating for longer. This plane has big issues with overheating once it reaches the orange. If you are not using mech, you will be forced to drop WEP to manage overheat, which will hurt your mid and early game position badly due to worsening the mediocre climb rate of the VB.10. The secrets to performing well in this plane are the same as in every other fragmobile with an air spawn. Get in early and then take out the correct targets in the correct order to make the enemy team fold like a house of cards. Avoid going after bombers because you can always frag them late game, whereas you cannot repair the oil leak you got from a bomber gunner mid-air, or get back the time you wasted chasing a guy for 2 minutes when you could have been helping your team instead. The only time I make an exception to this is when they are flying directly in my flight path, and even then I occasionally don't risk it. You should be aware that certain bombers like the Brigand, B-18, T-18, B-7A2, and SP-2C are very effective as fighters, and will shoot you down if you assume that they don't pose a threat, so stay on your toes. Once you obtain a position above the enemy team, it is the time to swiftly make your attack and eliminate the most enemies possible so your team can easily clean up the leftovers. The enemy will very often be traveling as a group together. In this instance, go for the guys in the back as long as they aren't far below the leaders. When you attack the guy in the front, the guy in the back will see you and start chasing you, whereas if you go for the guy in the back, the guy in the front often will have no idea you are there and continue being oblivious, which makes him another easy frag. To simplify things, I've made a little chart. The green box represents the kills that contribute most to winning, while the red box represents kills that you should only pursue if you've taken out every other enemy on the map. Threat level makes more sense if you think about it as the cost of not killing that enemy, which is mainly the chance that the enemy will kill you and your teammates if you don't get him first. The other cost is unintuitive to think about. Not only does that represent the energy you use getting the kill, it also represents the time, ammunition, and position you will sacrifice. The more resources you spend, the higher the cost. For example, a Yak 3 who is distracted by your teammates and is in easy shooting distance is a high threat target, with a low time cost assuming you hit your shots. You should kill him as quickly as possible. By contrast, the same Yak 3 player who is paying attention but is on the deck beneath multiple other targets is still potentially a high late game threat, but costs too much energy, time, and position to pursue in the moment. This chart isn't perfect, but it should help to categorize your targets. Remember, bombers fit into the red zone because they are low threat and often have high time, position, and ammunition costs, as well as the significant chance that you will get damaged. This is why chasing them early game has a negative impact on your win rate. Anyway, let's move on. It is very useful to count the number of enemies rushing the deck early game and keep a tally of how many enemies have been spotted. If only 3 rushed low, and you see a small group of 5 or 6 coming towards you at altitude, including bombers, there is a good chance they have people side climbing or in the back line, especially if they have a squad with no spotted members. In this instance, you should hold your altitude for a little bit longer until these enemies have been accounted for. On the other hand, if 10 guys rush low, play as aggressively as you can get away with so you can get in on those sweet kills before it's too late. Also, you should be watching your own team's deployment as much as the enemy. If your team is climbing straight in with good fighters, has a bunch of the fighter bombers that I mentioned, or you are fortunate enough to have other teammates flying interceptors, you should play more aggressively so you can get to the kills fast enough. If they aren't climbing, and are instead rushing the deck like bots, you should still play aggressive to try and thin out the enemy numbers, but you may wish to maintain altitude and focus down the highest targets that are side climbing, rather than rushing for the maximum number of frags. This is because you will not be receiving much in the way of backup, and because the plane does worse from inferior positions than something like a BF-109 F4. The VB.10 isn't exactly slow on the deck, but its overheating is worse at low altitudes, and it doesn't have the performance to energy trap most vehicles in a shallow climb. This isn't a huge deal in most games, but you should keep it in mind. But Avar, you forgot to mention the XP-50s. They're always above you and super unfair to fight. How can you say the VB-10 is good? Hold your horses. First off, the VB-10 is nothing special apart from its ability to get a lot of kills fast, and you shouldn't expect it to hold the cards over the most overpowered 4.0 in the game. If you miss the head-on and he gets close on your 6, you're done. But that doesn't mean you should give up. There are 3 main ways to deal with XP-50 pilots. You can ignore them, head on them, or run to your team. The first option is what I do when I see an XP-50 chasing bombers at the start of the match, or playing extremely passive and refusing to attack. Such players will usually waste their ammo and get damaged, meaning they are not a long-term threat. This XP-50 illustrates the point perfectly. I see that he is traveling towards the friendly SP2C in a straight line, and even though the SP2C dies, he will still likely chase the D4Y. Therefore, I will keep an eye on him, but I am not going to go chase him, because I know that I can get way more kills if I focus the incoming enemy group. This works like a charm. I get 5 kills, the XP-50 gets run down by the I-29, and we win inside 4 minutes of combat. If the XP-50 really wants you, you can choose not to commit the dogfight, which you will lose unless the XP-50 completely throws it, and instead bait the enemy towards your team. This gives up your ability to get frags early game, and is dependent on teamwork, which is a total crapshoot in random battles, but it can work by either boring the XP-50 into going for one of your teammates or leading him in front of a friendly's guns. Or, you can just go head on. These guns fire an incredibly potent spread, and most XP-50s don't bother to dodge. Pro tip, if the target is coming out of a turn, you need to aim to the outside of the turn, because their plane is still drifting through the air, and your rounds will miss if you fire directly at the target. Remember to dodge as return fire before you get smacked. I start dodging at 1 kilometer, unless I'm already in a tight situation and need to make absolutely sure the enemy dies. In all cases, notice the relative motion of the target to your cursor. If they are sliding slightly right, up, down, etc., aim your rounds at their future position, and remember your shells spread out again after reaching their convergence. In this instance, the guy is sliding right and downwards from my perspective, so I place my cursor respectively and get rewarded with a fat severe damage without taking any hits in the return. There is more to the art of the head-on. Against turn fighters who usually would rather dodge your guns, you can fire a few rounds to force them on the defensive, then spray them down while they try to sneak past. This also works when you have encountered or observed an enemy before the head-on, and notice that he prefers to dodge rather than full commit. People will occasionally try to stall trap you without having enough energy to get away, which leads to them going slow in front of your guns and making themselves easy kills. This especially applies to new BF-109 players who think their status as an energy fighter gives them a magical ability to do infinite loops. Beyond learning these skills, the most important things to manage about the VB-10 are the poor climb rate and late game overheating. This plane maintains its engine power at high altitude very well compared to most opponents, which is something you can exploit if you really need to, but due to the frag-happy nature of the VB-10, you probably won't find yourself using it much. Do keep in mind that your engine performance will start to drop off sharply around 20,500 feet, which is not a huge deal in most cases, but significant when compared to the P-38J and L's power drop, which starts significantly later at 23,000, so be careful when chasing super passive lightnings. If you made it this far, kudos. I really appreciate your time, and I hope this information helps you improve. I've linked my Discord in case you want to join my small community, so have fun, and I'll catch you in the next video.